Today you're gonna need to buckle up for these wild stories, starting with AMD's RX 8000 XTX being spotted. AMD confirms Ryzen 9000 is worse than the 7800 X3D in games, but Ryzen 9000 can overclock big, and Nvidia's entire RTX 5000 GPUs just leaked. Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. Thanks to Best Buy for sponsoring this video. Okay, it's news time, and first up for today, AMD's next-gen RX 8000 GPUs have had a pretty bumpy ride. For starters, it sounded like their next-gen cards were gonna be off the chain, but later we found out that their highest-end card was unfortunately canceled. Well, it looks like there's at least a little bit of good news here, because one of their upcoming RX 8000 GPUs has been spotted. As you can see, right down here, we actually have a shipping manifest that has a few versions of this GPU. It's actually the Navi 48 GPU, which, if rumors are correct, is the higher end of the two GPUs AMD is planning to release for this, though obviously it's not high end, it's just the higher end of the two. And of course, Navi 48 leaked before now, and now we're actually seeing it in the manifest, so it seems pretty clear that that is in fact the naming scheme that they're going with for this. But regardless, as you can see, one interesting fact here is that they call it the Navi 48, then XTX. And what this suggests is that even though AMD isn't really planning on releasing an ultra high-end card like the 7900 XTX, they are still planning to at least give one of their GPUs potentially that XTX moniker. Of course, Navi 48 isn't the final name of the GPU. This is just the actual GPU that goes into the cards. And just because there's only two GPUs doesn't mean that in final products there's only going to be two, because they can actually bin these GPUs and take the smaller specs of them and put them in a separate card. Regardless, it's clear that AMD is on track to release these GPUs before too long, potentially. Obviously, these are likely not final GPUs, so it can still be a while, and so far rumors have recently been pointing to as late as next year, with potentially an announcement at the end of this year. Either way, it is nice to see these, and it's interesting to see them named XTX. Next up, I've gotta ask, is it just me, or does it feel like you've gotta be an audio expert to adjust the EQ settings on headsets? I mean, we all want to get the best audio we can, but I have no clue where these sliders should be. Well, you're not gonna believe this, because SteelSeries just announced their new Nova 5 headset, and it comes with audio presets for over 100 console games thanks to their new companion app, so you can instantly get the best audio geared specifically for your favorite games. For example, it can help to enhance footsteps in Call of Duty, or just give you more immersive sound. All you have to do is pair the headset, select the game, and enjoy the tailored audio developed by audio engineers and esports pros. And the headset itself is fantastic. It comes with 360-degree spatial audio, 60 hours of battery life, along with fast charging and a quick toggle switch between Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz. And I'll really be honest, it sounds amazing. So what are you waiting for? Pick up the new Nova 5 from Best Buy today by visiting the link in the description below. And next up for today, I had to take my helmet off just because I was starting to sweat bullets, but you definitely still need to be buckled in, especially for this next story. If you saw my last video, you know that AMD's technical marketing head, Donnie Walagrowski, recently stated that 3D V-Cache was going to be even better this next generation. Well, in a new interview, once again with Donnie Walagrowski, Tom's Hardware actually asked a really interesting question. As you can see right here, it says, I asked Walagrowski if the 9950X would take the crown of the fastest gaming chip on the market, to which he responded, quote, is it the fastest in gaming? It's faster than the competition in our tests. X3D is still the king of the hill, but by a much smaller margin than typically between X3D and non-X3D. Now, he later makes the specific comparison of 7800 X3D would be faster than the 9700X, but don't forget the original question was the 9950X, to which he still states that X3D is still king of the hill. And this response seems to have really gotten a lot of attention, but while it may be slightly disappointing, it's also not much of a surprise. If you remember when the 7000 series came out, the 5800X3D was still faster in gaming than, well, the entire 7000 suite. So this really shouldn't have people all up in arms or anything like that, although I will at least give credit where credit is due, because a lot of people are pointing out the fact that the 14900K is very similar to the 7800X3D, 7950X3D, pretty much all of them. They're very similar in terms of performance, but it shows gaming leadership against the 9950X. And it was further confirmed in that conversation with Mr. Walagrowski that the 9950X is faster than the competition. But this is almost certainly a non-overclocked 14900K, and these games are likely cherry-picked as well. So that is probably the reason why here, but the simple fact is that, at least according to AMD themselves, the 9950X is not faster than last gen's X3D chips. With that said, given how I discussed the 14900K not being overclocked, there is a very interesting story when it comes to overclocking AMD's next gen. As you can see right down here, the 9600X was recently tested in CPU-Z, and in fact, some people are really upset because it effectively, this is it right here at stock, the 9600X, although I do really want to point out that this is an engineering sample. That's certainly something to think about, but also the fact that CPU-Z isn't exactly all that great for AMD. And then a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's not 16% faster, even though 16% is an average. And as you can see here, they don't even list CPU-Z. But that really isn't the focus that I want to put here. So as you can see, this stock engineering sample does pretty much right on par with last gen's 7600X, though you'll obviously notice that the clocks are quite a bit lower. But the really big story here, at least in my opinion, is the fact that the 9600X was able to boost all the way up to 5.7 gigahertz all cores. And with that, as you can see, it takes the lead of 14% in single core and 13% in multi-core. But like I said, the main thing I want to focus on is that overclock. That 5.7 gigahertz overclock, especially all core overclock, is really impressive, especially when we're talking Ryzen. Basically, if this is right and they didn't use some wild cooler, AMD's next gen may be able to do some serious overclocking. Fingers crossed. And lastly for today, AMD's entire RTX 5000 Blackwell GPU series just leaked. This story originally comes from Kopite7 Kimmy, who, if you've been following this channel for a little while, you know that Kopite7 Kimmy has gotten a ton of leaks right. Though obviously still take this with a grain of salt because it is ultimately still a leak, but if there's anyone that's proven themselves over the years, it's definitely Kopite7 Kimmy. Regardless, let's get right to the specs. As you can see, they actually leaked all of the GPUs for AMD's next gen Blackwell series, the GB202, GB203, GB205, 206, and 207. And Video Cards does a really good job here of comparing it to last gen's Ada Lovelace. Starting things off, we have the GB202, and this of course is set to be the GPU that goes in the RTX 5090. And this one, as you can see, comes with 192 SMs. This is going to be the core count, and this is up 33% versus 8102, meaning we should be able to expect at the very least a 33% increase in performance versus the current gen RTX 4090, and that doesn't include clock increases or IPC increase. Though, with that said, there is a chance that Nvidia won't use the entire GPU to make up the RTX 4090, but still, this is a pretty decent increase in cores. Moving down to the GB203, things get a little wild. Here, as you can see, it's only a 5% core increase over current gen. Now, there's a chance that they take the GB202 and use a cut down version of it to make the RTX 5080, but as it looks right now, the GB203, like the 8103, is set to make up the 80 GPU. And this one, oh, really quick, GB202, 512-bit GDDR7, meaning a 512-bit memory bus and on GDDR7, though, as we've seen, the 5090 itself is likely set to be a little bit cut down from that to be a 448-bit memory bus. Still very impressive there. Then the GB203 256-bit bus for, once again, GDDR7. Moving down to the GB205, this is where things get really odd because according to this, there is actually a 17% decrease in core count versus the current gen 8104. Now you might be saying, well, that's the GB205 versus 8104, but as video cards state, the GB205 is said to be the 8104 successor, meaning that if this is true and it goes in the same type of GPU, it will have a 17% core decrease, which tells me that Nvidia is likely planning to get a ton of performance from clock increases and IPC increase, which means that this 33% boost is way bigger than that. Either way, here it comes with a 192-bit bus, once again with GDDR7. Moving down to the GB206 compared to the AD106, the SMs remain the same. And this one 128-bit of GDDR7, and finally the GB207 when compared to the AD107, once again drops core count by 17%. And this also comes with the 128-bit, but instead of GDDR7, GDDR6. All in all, this looks like a very interesting lineup just because, so Nvidia can either do one of two things. They can either take cut down versions of the higher end GPU to make what is currently, like, for example, like I said, the 4080 is currently based on the 8103, but they may take the GB202 and have a cut down version to be the 5080 and then kind of do that down along the stack, or they got a very big boost in performance that doesn't have anything to do with cores, which, if this is all right, would really mean that the next gen RTX 5090 is once again set to be a massive boost over current gen. And that's where you come in. Do you think that Nvidia's next gen GPUs are set to be a huge boost in performance in things other than cores, or do you think it's just going to be disappointing? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to check out the awesome Nova 5 headset from Best Buy down in the description below. And as always, have a great day.